Hello, beautiful people. Hey, look, before I start this session, I have a big announcement to make. And, the documentary that's been in the works for a long time about my son Eric's life, it's almost finished. But in order to get to that finish line, the director producer Paula Marino needs some help. So she needs funds to cover all the professional fees that will be involved to bring the story to the screen, like a professional story editor, a music composer, a sound mixer, an illustrator, animator, etc., etc. Now, Paula created a crowdfunding page where you can donate whatever you feel comfortable donating. You can also donate by purchasing a 30-minute session with one of our mediums, or by purchasing an item from the Erik merchandise store, like the one I'm wearing. Saving the world one prank at a time. It's an embroidered image, so it's really nice. So anyway, go visit channelingericdoc.com and take a look at it. This project is very near and dear to my heart. And one of my greatest wishes is to get the story out to more people so we can help more people. And I want you to go and see the trailer that's on the channelingericdoc.com. It's so moving. It's so powerful. It was my first reaction. It was a gut punch. Um, but it says it all. So look at the trailer and let me know what you think. Thank you guys. Howdy, people. And look at this wonderful, beautiful lady, Michelle Gregg. We seem like we haven't seen him forever, but she's got a busy life. And we are so grateful to have her anytime we can. If you want to find out more about her, I don't know if you want me to send you any more business, but check her out in the description box below. And of course, it will also be on the screen, so please watch for that. Before you forget, hit the subscribe button and the like button, because you know you're going to like it. You know why? Because Erik, who I love very much, who is on the other side, is going to help us get through human oppression and the current human awakening. Hi, my love. I love you.
He says, "Hi, Mama. I love you more.
Oh, I
I
love you,
love you
Spiske.
more." He is super excited because he says, "Let's dive into this."
Let's
He
do it.
goes, "Let's get this oppression." Okay, yes. He's like, "Say it, Michelle. Let's get this oppression shit out of here. Let's get
So
going."
there's going to be a lot of different, but I want to first talk about, these are community questions, and they're just so awesome. Actually, I haven't read them, but they always are. I want to talk about the oppression that I think it's from the Anunnaki, from Nibiru, the bad Anunnaki. But, back I think it was in World War I or something. I heard that bells changed from 430 hertz, which aligns with the Earth's energy, and were purposely changed to 440 hertz, which is extremely disharmonious to our energy field. Erik, can you sort of talk about that?
He says that's true. He says there was purposeful change
Dude, by
that
who?
was done. He's saying around, so this is mid-century, around mid-century, so around the 1950s. So what he's saying is that he's calling it like groups of war. He's saying it was done to keep people in a state of control. And so he says it was a test. It was a test.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is he's saying, even though this is something that was done purposefully, and he says, yes, with the idea of control. He says there were other tests that were done with sound. Um, he says done on unassuming public, on groups of people. He said that cathedrals,
Mm.
many halls, that there's been gatherings over many centuries, that the sounds that would ring through the chambers of cathedrals and those type of places were meant to help raise the frequency.
Oh,
So he says there was purposeful change over many generations in
Oh.
adjusting that. So what was done with the bells in mid-century was like picking up on that energy that, yes, he says, mom, did come from, he says, way back when, he goes, we'll say when the guys with not so good intentions, and
The
it's
military
Anunnaki.
industrial complex, is that who you're talking about? Or
No,
are
he's
you
speaking of way back. He's seeing Anunnaki. So
Anunnaki?
yeah, way
Oh,
back at that point, he says, so there was, he's actually saying that a lot of our ancient technology, a lot of our mystery with universal secrets has to do with encoding with sound. So sound through the voice, sound through bells. He says that it moves matter. It
wow.
moves matter. So he says if you think about
And we're
our
matter.
right, our physicality, he goes, it makes sense. So he goes, if you go back way back to that point, our existence was very different. Our experience was very different, what we were capable of and what we were able to do.
Yeah.
And so he says that's where that pathway of what we call oppression started. And so
Wow.
that energy continued through generations and then would come up through different groups in
Wow.
society that were connected to that. And he goes, because we know there's the physical level, and then we know there's that non-physical level that sits behind it, which is
Yeah.
really to suppress the consciousness. He says, good news though, oppression is not permanent. It can never be. It can never be. So it always has to be relieved, which is why we've gone through many generations of, he goes, really awakening, even though this is the big time of awakening. There has been a point over many generations where there has been a push to relieve it.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. I think that they probably infiltrated the military industrial complex, but yes, they want chaos because they have to have something to control, and you have to have chaos
Yes. Yeah,
to,
fear,
to
fear. He
fear.
says, Mom, it's to
Yeah.
amp fear because fear is, he goes, the thought is if we can keep them in fear, we can keep them in control.
How in the world do they say, all right, all bell makers, I want y'all to change this to your bells to this hertz? How did that,
He,
Eric?
he said, he said it's having information that, he says a lot of information that's kept away from the public about the power of frequency. And
Okay.
so he says they had access to information, and he says, let's call them, some of them, as being mad scientists. So he says there were those that had information that was not public, that understood the power of frequency,
Mm.
and they had, he goes, not necessarily all the information of ancient frequency in the way that we talk of right now, but they had enough information to understand through signaling, through tones. And he says it was, he's actually bringing it back to Germany, like Nazi Germany.
Oh, yeah, they
Yeah.
had the Bell spacecraft thing, but all right, so why was it? I think we answered this already. Why was the awakening oppressed to begin with, and when did the oppression start? Well, we know it was millions of, maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago with the Anunnaki,
Yeah.
and the oppression. Why did they want to oppress us? They were afraid of our powers. I mean, they stripped light codes from our DNA, and they robbed us of all of our natural innate abilities, our powers.
It was it, Erik says the simple answer to it is it's, consider it like takeover. So
Yeah.
it's to develop a race, and he says slave race. It's to
That-
develop slave race and to take over. He says when a group has outrun themselves of their resources and of being able to expand in their own planet, in their own systems, they go, oh, hey, look at this system over here, and look what we can do. And they can go in under the cover of, we're here to help you. We're
Okay.
here to
I have
help
I
you.
have
And
my cursor right on the audio button in case Maria comes because
yeah,
sorry. Okay. How did the 1% who ruled the world get there in the first place? And why were they allowed to rule for so long? I mean, come on, Inky, the good Anunnaki. What happened to you? You let your stepbrother, your half brother Enlil just friggin' oppress everybody.
So Erik says kind of what we were saying a moment ago. He says, because there is the veil of forgetfulness, he goes, okay, so
Yeah.
it's not really one truth,
Yeah.
because it is a temporary forgetfulness, but it's coming in to raise consciousness to help get Earth back to, well, help to get humanity, the habitants, back to a place of harmony. So he says that's not something that can really be done in one swoop, because it took many, many thousands of
Oh
years
yeah.
to get to a place of deep oppression.
Oh
And he
God.
says, and think about, he says, what's the other side of it? Because remember the polarity, there's always that silver lining to everything. So for the souls, for many souls from many different planetary systems, incarnating here on Earth, he says, coming here and taking on this project, this mission, would be great evolution for that soul lineage, for that family. So there
Mhm.
was a benefit to coming in with the veil of forgetfulness and
Yeah.
going through it. Now he says, as a soul choosing to come in, they also know, yeah, there's going to be some heavy stuff. There's going to be some hard stuff.
Yeah.
But he says this is also part of what source, it's part of what the experience is. It's the, I love you so much, I'm going to allow you to do this. I love you so much, I'm going to allow you to
Oh,
break off and make these decisions. Because he says everything, the hard stuff, the bad stuff, the yucky stuff, all of it, it's all source. It's
yeah,
all from source.
absolutely.
It's free will, Mom.
That's right. So, in my main service, the energy repair, protection, and enhancement, that's a mouthful. I do have to restore the light codes in the DNA with the help of the sun god Ra, and the divine team helps, free the person from oppression, just like liberating and them from that oppression. So, and some other stuff, sort of changing, realigning that person's energy with the natural energy of Earth, so that they can restore balance and promote healing and all that stuff. So I think it works. Erik, is it working? I mean,
Yes.
you and your friends are in charge. Okay, good. All right.
Yes, he says it does work, Mom. And he says there is he says there's many people that are stepping more into a balanced state. And he says that we work directly through their their blood, like through their, right through their system, and rebalance the, he says, that lineage that comes, because many of us are connected to the Anunnaki, and also to the Anunnaki that um decided to not go with the heaviness.
Okay.
And so he says there's been a lot of them that have come to us, Mom,
Yeah.
that have been separated from their family, ostracized from their family many, many, many thousands of years ago. And that rebalance has been happening. And he goes, and
Okay.
you're helping many of them with that.
Oh. Are those who are doing the oppression, such as the 1%, are they aware of what is revealed with awakening? And are they also spiritually inclined? All right, so are those who are doing the oppression, like the 1%, are they aware that we're going through an awakening? And are they spiritually inclined? I can't imagine if they're oppressing us, but go ahead, Erik, you probably know what this person is asking.
Well, he
Smarter
says that
than me.
this isn't really a a clear, you can't really give it one answer for all, because
Yeah.
they're not all in one group. So he says we're not looking at one group around a table huddled around with the same ideas.
Oh, yeah, of
He
course.
says
Yeah.
what we're actually looking at is, imagine that there are many different tables. And so what they're, because their intention, because of what their intention is, and some of them have an understanding that there is power to the consciousness, there is power, he goes, there's like an awareness, but not in the spiritual sense that we're speaking. It's not for the good of
Okay.
all, it's for the power of control. He goes, now what that does is, he says, that cuts them off from a lot of higher frequency, like seeing the bigger picture. And he says that this is where we get into, he says, we could say dark arts, because
Mhm.
there are some that are running with the power of dark arts, but he says it's in smaller groups. It's all over
Okay.
the world. And he says, and the biggest thing is the energy that's behind it. It's the non-physical energy,
Yeah.
but they're
Okay.
not all aware.
Yeah. So I think we've answered this question, but let me just expand on it. Why is this oppression allowed to go on so long on at all, let alone for this long? I'm assuming it's our fault and we have to find our own way out. So we basically what we're saying is it's free will that we have allowed this to happen. We don't have the key to unlock the little magnetic or whatever electromagnetic net over our souls or whatever it is. So anything else you want to say about that, or is that done deal?
Well, he says we have spoken about that, but he says the thing is that with every generation, and he says, and remember, we're not all coming back in from the same place. It's different aspects of the soul that are coming in from different
Yeah.
locations to help elevate. And he says, but you have to remember, he says, if we're looking at it from that human perspective in the 3D reality, it looks a lot different than when you're looking at it from the broad perspective, the soul perspective, the higher self, because in that perspective, it's a game. It's what can I create? What can I do? How can I go in this time? How am I going to grow the soul? How will this affect the changes? He says that's why Earth is so fascinating for so many different
It
beings.
is. And we have an increase in light workers and children coming in are different, and I'm sure they're going to be a part of the awakening. Now, how have the people who are currently incarnating in Africa as Africans influenced the repression of human awakening? Ugh. First of all, have they? I don't know. That's kind of a racist question. I don't know if I like that, but
Well, he
maybe
says
that's it.
there's really no certain group that is, because he goes, we're everywhere, so it's really no
Yeah.
certain group.
Okay. Good.
Um, yeah, he says that's not really a clear
Okay.
answer with that.
Okay. Good. Is it true that aliens have been on the moon with devices aimed at Earth that suppress our frequencies, keeping us depressed, angry, and warlike? Oh, whoa.
Well, um, in short, he says yes, there is truth to that. He says there are beings that have more of a, he says, a heavier polarity, um, a darker intention, and they do have some systems
Three
that do
guns.
affect the earth grid. They do.
Wow.
And he says, but not quite in the way that we might think that it's
Oh,
happening. He says there's a lot of other things at play. There's a lot of beings at play that help hold a frequency around the earth, specifically right now.
mm.
So it doesn't affect us quite in the way where people might think it does.
Reminds me of that. I think it's Marvin the Martian. I'm going to obliterate you with my ray gun. Remember that cartoon character? Anyway, okay, when we are
You do
told,
that very well. That's a very good
thanks.
impression.
I do not do accents well at all. When we are told to learn how to activate our gifts, what exactly should we do to come out of the oppression and do so? What a question. Give us some practicality, Eric.
He says, okay. He goes, big one, big one. He goes, and he's like yelling this one, turn off the fear feed.
The
He says,
TV for one thing.
yes, he says your algorithm, you all have an internal algorithm. He says turn it off. If it's creating disturbance in you, he goes, you have no idea how little bits over and over of listening to people, of watching things on your TV. He says scrolling on the internet, having to hear the next update, what's going on in politics. He says that is going to keep you looped over and over and over.
Yeah.
So he says go on a diet, go on a fear diet. He
Yeah.
says
Okay,
literally,
keep going. I'm gonna mute.
he says literally go on a fear diet. So really, he goes, take a minute and say, hey, you know what? For a day or two, I'm going to stay off social media. Maybe I'll check in with a few people. I'll just do a quick little check in, but I'm going to make my free will decision to stay out of the news feeds. He goes, and then move around on a need to know basis. He
Okay.
says, you don't
I
need
mean,
to know
somebody's
every
gonna
five
tell me if the
minutes.
sky is falling, so I'm gonna get a phone
Yeah.
call or a
He
text.
goes,
Okay.
he goes, trust me, you're going to hear it. If there's something you need to
Yeah.
know, you're going to know.
Yeah. You got Connie big hands here. Okay. Was the veil constructed purposely to cause humanity to unite? The veil, is that the veil between heaven and this dimension? Is that what they're referring to? And how was the veil constructed?
So he's actually saying what the veil is he says that is the bridge between, it's the etheric bridge between physical and non-physical.
Oh,
So he says what the doesn't like using the word separation, but he says we'll call it the bridge, the veil. He goes, what it actually is it's a thickening. Think of it as blood. He goes, because blood, that's our life force. So that's where
yeah.
everything is encoded. And so he says the veil is like a having your bloodlines clogged up. It's like having your arteries clogged up.
Oh, okay.
And so he says, so the thinning that's been taking place, it's because we've been releasing karmic energy. And so that karmic energy is thinning out the blood. It's allowing more flow. And he goes,
Okay.
was it put in purposely? Well, that goes right back to what we were talking about with the Anunnaki in the beginning. So when we start to have intent that is not aligned with the good of all, that starts to create a heaviness, a thickening, a clogging. So
Okay.
was it done purposely? He says, yeah, it was. It
From
was done
source?
purposely for control.
Oh,
No,
that, okay.
no, he says because source gave the free will decision
Oh,
for choice to be made.
so are you saying the Anunnaki and others created the veil? Is that electromagnetic net that's
Yes.
covering our
Yes.
brains and
Yes,
everything?
because he says it's all from
Assholes.
intention. It's all from intention.
Wow.
Yes.
So, but they're saying, was it the veil constructed to cause humanity to unite? How would a veil cause us to unite? Out of this necessity to support each other, to collaborate for survival, that kind of thing?
Yes,
Because we
because what
don't
he's
know that there's, oh, it's okay. We don't need to worry about anything because we're eternal beings and we're going to be on the other side. I mean,
because the connection, he says, that's already established. So
okay.
if we think about what was placed, so again, that's like clogged arteries. So the arteries are already there to exist because we're all connected. Everything is connected and in flow. And when we start to clog the arteries, then that's something else that's invading it. He says poor diet, whatever it is, that's
Yeah.
the intention. So he goes, if you think of it that way, that's more of how it is. And as we unclog it, that support has always been there. That support, the veins, has always been there.
Mm, interesting. So how can we deconstruct the veil? Or can we?
Well, he says when we're experiencing uh, physical and non physical, which is what we are, and we are going to be for a very, very, very long time. And so he says, will there be a veil? Well, there's always going to be some sort of a polarity between physical and non-physical.
We have
Now
to
he
have it.
says
We
we
have to
have
have
to have
some
it.
spiritual amnesia that Source
Yes,
probably designed, but that's not the same as the veil that the Anunnaki created.
that's right. That's right. So he says what we're speaking of a veil that stays in place is not one thing. He says because it's not really like one fence or one thin line. Think of it as how we talk about timelines, how we talk about dimensions, because as we are right now and as we will continue to be, we're all here and we are focused in different spaces of awareness and consciousness.
Yeah.
And so some people right now have a very, very thin veil and they're
Like
experiencing
you.
non-physical in
Yeah.
every day, whereas others are completely oblivious to it
Yeah.
and are
And that's
experiencing a
okay.
very third, and that's fine. Erik says
Oh,
this is the beauty of the earth,
yeah.
truly. He goes, and it is okay.
So how can we best accelerate our own awakening process individually, as individuals? I love these questions.
Mm-hmm. So he says, well, the first thing is he says, if you've got the awareness of, I want to accelerate, I want to grow, he goes, that's the biggest part because it's your intention. The intention of I'm seeking, I want to grow. And he says, and it's not about disconnecting yourself from physical reality. It's understanding yourself and how are you blending the understanding of your higher self with your physical reality? How can you enhance your physical reality? He says that's what life is truly all about. So if you want to speed that process up, he says, well, first of all, he says, use the tools that you already have within you. And he says, so what are some of those tools? Well,
Yeah.
if you have a voice box and you can make sound, he says, like we were talking about the power of sound, talking about the bells, what can you do with your voice? He says, first thing in the morning when you wake up, that is the best time. Don't pick up your phone. Don't start thinking about tomorrow's problems or what's going to go on during the day. He says,
Yeah.
get up and affirm, I am spiritually awake. I am open. I am creating the most amazing day for myself. And he says, and chant, sing,
Yeah.
make noises.
Those are
He
very,
says,
I mean, there's so many.
yes,
And, I have a chart where each chakra, for example, has its own note. C
yes.
flat, C sharp, etc. So it's kind of interesting.
He says Om is one of the most powerful
Yeah.
to chant. Now he says, let's say the voice box is not usable, or let's say you're not able to for one reason or another. He goes singing bowls, sound bowls,
Yeah.
tuning forks, chimes. He
Yeah. There's
says
so many
use
options.
sound.
Tibetan bells. My Tibetan bells, are they okay? I use
Yes.
them to help encode the crystals. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Two more questions and then we'll stop and do part two. You guys go ahead and just subscribe, please, and hit the notification button and the like, please. Erik says so, or he'll haunt you. Just kidding. Anyway, two more questions. What is the best way to accelerate the awakening process as a collective?
He says connecting to others. So he says, if you want to take power from your heart, he goes, that's really getting into the deepest love of your heart. He goes, mom, like you do, that maternal deep love.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, in connecting to that deepest part of your heart and sending that out to every single person, sending it out and wrapping it around the world. He says, we're all connected no matter what. That can't be disconnected. And so when you send out those waves of love, he goes, you know what, guys, a lot of you that are listening to this, you came here with those built-in abilities amplified.
Yeah.
So when you put intention to that and you send it out, he says, you have no idea what that's doing.
What percentage of the people who are watching are like that, have that capacity? Probably near 100%.
Near 100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So one thing I do is I love to send love from my heart chakra down through my feet and all the way like branches of the roots of a tree down to the core of the earth, and then get that energy from Mother Earth, and then boom, let it like tendrils and go to the crust and go to the soles of the feet of everyone, or little birds of the sky, or people in the airplane, everyone who really needs the love at that one moment. I don't give it to everybody. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, let's close on that. And thank you. You guys check out Michelle. She's in the description box below. And thank you, Erik. You're so lovely, Michelle. This is wonderful. It really is. And I'm hoping it'll help a lot of people. Really.
Yeah.
Thank you.